I never thought I'd be sitting here writing this out, but honestly, I'm at my breaking point. My wife, Amanda, and I have been together for over 10 years. We have a daughter, Lily, who's 12, and we've always been kind of the perfect family type. At least, that's what I thought. We had our issues, sure, but nothing that seemed insurmountable. Until recently, when I started noticing little things that didn't add up. At first, it was just small stuff. Amanda suddenly became really protective of her phone, always keeping it close, even in the middle of the night. She started taking longer showers, and I'd catch her sneaking out of the house during the day when she thought I wasn't looking. But I brushed it off because I didn't want to believe she was cheating. I mean, why would she? Then came the bigger signs. She got really defensive when I asked about her phone, snapping at me like I was crazy. She started dressing differently, more sexy, more confident, and she was always quick to dismiss my concerns. She'd say I was paranoid, that I was overthinking everything, but I knew something was wrong. Still, I kept quiet. I did. Want to jump to conclusions without proof. Things really hit me hard during the last competition season. Amanda's involvement in Lily's dance was intense. She was her biggest cheerleader, pushing her to practice even more. But then everything changed. I noticed she was traveling more often, claiming it was for work, but her stories didn't sit right with me. She'd leave early, come back late, and often had a strange smell on her, like perfume I didn't recognize. One night I was going through her things because I couldn't shake this gnawing feeling. I found her phone, and I was planning to check her messages when I saw her lock it. That wasn't unusual, but what caught my eye was an incoming call from someone named Jake. I didn't think much of it at first, but then I saw her scroll through her messages. There were texts from him, conversations that weren't about Lily's dance or work. They were flirty, suggestive, and made it clear there was something more going on. I felt my stomach drop. My heart started pounding. I kept reading, trying to stop myself, but I needed to know. I read her talking about meeting up, how she was so tired of pretending, how Jake really gets her, and how they had this thing going during the competition travel. My mind spun. How long has this been going on? Was this why she was so distant lately? Why she was always sneaking around? I was furious. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the deception, the lies she told me. And the worst part, her blatant denial when I confronted her. I pulled her aside the next day, tried to ask her straight. Her eyes flashed with that bitchy attitude she's always had, and she told me I was paranoid, that I was imagining things. She said I was insecure, that I didn't trust her, but I had proof now. I saw the photos, the messages, everything pointed to her cheating on me with Jake, her daughter's dance instructor's protege, no less. The photos were the worst. I found them by accident, really. Some parent at Lily's competition had posted pictures on social media, and there they were, Amanda and Jake entering the same hotel room, sneaking around like teenagers. And in one of the photos, you could clearly see that they were in a hotel during the last big competition, a weekend I had been working late myself. How could she lie so effortlessly? It was like she thought she could keep this secret forever. I remember staring at those pictures, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. My mind was racing, trying to process how my wife, Amanda, who I trusted implicitly, could do this. She was bitchy when I caught her, trying to lie her way out of it, telling me I was crazy, that I had no right to ask questions. That's when I realized she was used to getting her way, used to manipulating the truth. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I knew I had to come up with a plan, and fast. After I saw those photos, everything changed. I couldn't sleep that night. My mind kept replaying the images. The way Amanda looked sneaking into that hotel room, her face a mix of defiance and guilt. It's like my entire world had been turned upside down, and the worst part was realizing she'd been lying to me this whole time. For how long? Weeks? Months? Honestly, I didn't know how I hadn't seen it sooner. Maybe deep down I always suspected, but I refused to accept it. The next morning I was a mess. I kept staring at my phone, debating whether I should confront her right then or gather more evidence. I didn't want to accuse her without knowing exactly what I was dealing with, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending nothing was wrong. I decided I'd confront her that evening, after I'd gathered a bit more proof, just to be certain. In the meantime, I started digging around. I checked her social media, her emails, anything I could find. I was desperate for confirmation. I even hacked her email account, which I hate myself for now, but I needed to be sure. That's when I found the chat logs. Jesus. They were worse than I imagined. Amanda and Jake had been talking for months, exchanging flirtatious messages, planning secret meetups. She even told him she was so tired of playing this role and can't wait for this to be over. It was clear she was actively cheating on me, and she was loving every second of it. I felt an overwhelming mix of anger and heartbreak. How could she do this to me? To Lily and to herself. It was like she was deliberately throwing away everything we had built, our marriage, our family, our respect. I wanted to yell, to break something, but I knew I had to stay calm. I needed a plan. So I started devising a way to catch her in the act, to make sure she couldn't deny it anymore. I bought a cheap voice recorder and installed hidden cameras in the house. Nothing obvious, just enough to capture her reactions if she slipped up again. I also made a point of being more attentive, pretending everything was normal. I didn't want her to suspect I was onto her, not yet. One night I decided I'd follow her when she said she was going to visit a friend. I hid in the car and watched her leave, then followed her to that same hotel where the photos were taken. I hid in a nearby parking lot, waiting. Sure enough, after about an hour, she slipped into the hotel again, looking around nervously. I felt my stomach tighten. She was meeting him again. I knew I had to act fast. The next morning I confronted her. I took her aside, quiet but firm. I told her I knew about the affair, about her secret trips, about her messages with Jake. Her face twisted into that bitchy smirk, like she thought she could lie her way out of it again. She started with her usual excuses. It's not what you think. He's just a friend, you're overreacting, and that classic line, you're insecure. But I cut her off. I threw the pictures on the table, pointed out her messages, played the recordings I'd made. Her face went pale, then flushed with anger. She snapped back, biting and bitchy as ever, denying everything. She said I was stalking her, that I was paranoid, that I was ruining everything because I didn't trust her. Honestly, her rage was almost impressive. She was so used to lying her way out of things, she couldn't even see how transparent she was. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I told her I'd had enough, that I knew she'd been cheating on me with that little shit Jake, and I wasn't going to pretend I didn't see through her lies. When I finally dropped the evidence in front of her, she looked furious, like I'd insulted her. She yelled at me, called me insecure, accused me of spying on her because I was jealous. She told me I was overreacting and that I was making a big deal out of nothing, that she loved me, that she'd never cheat on me, yet her own words contradicted her. I could see the truth in her eyes, even if she refused to admit it. I felt humiliated, betrayed, and just plain furious. All that trust I'd placed in her, gone in an instant. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, had been sneaking around behind my back with her little protege. And she had the nerve to stand there trying to deny it like a bitchy queen. That's when I realized I had two choices. I could go down the path of destruction, fight, scream, tear everything apart, or I could gather myself, think about what I really wanted. Part of me wanted to explode, to make her pay. But deep down, I knew I'd need to do something smarter. Something that would hit her in a way she didn't expect. I wasn't going to be her punching bag anymore. I was done with her lies. I just didn't know what my next move was yet. After that confrontation, I felt like I'd been punched in the gut again. Seeing her so defiant, so bitchy, like she had all the power, it only fueled my rage. But beneath that, there was also a deep hurt. I kept thinking about Lily, about how she would be affected by all this. My wife's betrayal wasn't just about us. It was about destroying the little family I'd fought so hard to build. I knew I had to be careful, but I also knew I couldn't just sit around and do nothing. I spent the next few days trying to process everything. I was angry, yes, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I realized I'd been blind for a long time, unwilling to see the truth because I loved her. But love doesn't mean ignoring massive red flags, and it sure as hell doesn't mean sticking around for more lies. I was hurt, but I was also pissed off and determined. I decided I'd make her regret the day she ever stepped out of line. Meanwhile, Amanda was trying her usual tactics, playing the victim, crying, telling anyone who would listen that I was crazy, that she wasn't cheating. I knew her game. She was used to manipulating people, and I wasn't going to let her turn everyone against me. I kept quiet, gathering more evidence, trying to stay one step ahead. One afternoon, I hired a private investigator. I know some people might say that's overkill, but I needed undeniable proof. I wanted her to know I wasn't messing around anymore. The pie followed her around town, kept tabs, and even managed to snap some photos of her meeting with Jake in a parking lot. They weren't as incriminating as the hotel ones, but they were enough to seal the deal. While all this was happening, Amanda kept up her act, acting innocent in front of friends and family, lying through her teeth. She'd say she was working late or out with Lily or visiting her sister. But I knew better. I could see her eyeing her phone constantly, acting suspicious whenever I was near. Every time I saw her slip her phone into her purse, I got a sick feeling in my stomach. I knew she was hiding something. Things got uglier when I finally decided I'd had enough of her. Bullshit. I sat her down one night, told her I had enough evidence to bury her if I wanted to, that I knew about her sneaking around, about her lies, about everything. I told her I was done being her fool, her doormat, her punching bag. I wasn't going to let her destroy our marriage and our family with her ego and her lies. That was the beginning of her breakdown. Her response: pure bitchy attitude. She told me I was crazy, that I was a jealous stalker, that I had no right to control her. She said I was insecure and that I was the one ruining everything because I didn't trust her. She threw a tantrum, yelling at me, accusing me of being paranoid and obsessive. But I just sat there, calm but firm, watching her unravel. I knew this was her last-ditch effort to save her skin, but it was too late. I wasn't buying her lies anymore. That night, I got up the nerve to tell her I wanted her out. I told her she could either leave willingly or I'd make her leave forcibly. I didn't care what she thought anymore. All I knew was I wasn't going to let her keep destroying our lives with her selfishness. She looked at me with that sneering look, like she thought she still held all the cards, but I wasn't about to let her manipulate me anymore. I had enough evidence, enough proof, enough of her lies. She finally packed a bag and stormed out, still crying, still screaming that I was overreacting. That night, I sat alone in the living room, feeling empty but also strangely relieved. I knew I'd taken the first step towards reclaiming my life. The betrayal had cut deep, but I realized I couldn't keep living in a lie. I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel hurt. Hell, I still do. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I had to decide whether I wanted to keep fighting for this marriage or cut my losses and start over. I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine when she was out there with him, sneaking around, lying to my face. The next days were a roller coaster: anger, sadness, frustration. I kept questioning myself. Was I wrong to suspect? Did I push her away? But then I remembered the photos, the messages, her sneaking out, her bitchy attitude when I confronted her. No, I wasn't crazy. She was the one who chose to betray us. And now I was finally free to decide my next move. After Amanda left, I felt a strange mix of relief and despair. The house was too quiet. Lily was confused and upset, asking where her mom was. I didn't have the energy to pretend everything was normal anymore. I knew I had to be strong for Lily, but inside I was a mess. Part of me wanted to break down, to cry, to scream at the unfairness of it all. Another part of me knew I couldn't afford to fall apart. I had to get it together for her sake. In the days that followed, I started making some tough decisions. I talked to my brother Dave, who's always been there for me. I told him everything about Amanda, the affair, the photos, the lies. He was furious, said I should pack her bags and throw her out for good. But I wasn't sure I was ready for that yet. I needed to think, to plan. I wasn't just going to react on impulse this time. I wanted to be smart. I also reached out to a divorce lawyer. Yeah, I'd never thought I'd be doing that, but I knew I needed legal advice. I didn't want to be taken for a fool, especially with Lily involved. The lawyer listened carefully, then told me I had a solid case if I wanted to pursue separation, citing evidence of infidelity and emotional betrayal. That was the push I needed. Deep down, I knew I couldn't stay with someone who had lied to me so blatantly and had been unfaithful during such a critical time in our daughter's life. I decided to delay any final decision until I'd gathered more evidence and talked to Amanda again. I wanted her to see I was serious. So, I sent her a message, short, direct, to the point. I told her I knew everything, from the hotel pictures to the messages. I told her she had one last chance to tell me the truth before I took legal steps. No more lies, no more games. I included a picture of the hotel photo and a screenshot of her conversations. I wanted her to understand I wasn't messing around anymore. Her reply was, "Classic Amanda." She texted back with a bunch of lies, claiming she was just trying to figure herself out, that Jake was just a friend, and that I was jealous and insecure. She said she loved me and Lily, that she didn't want a divorce, and that this was all a mistake. Her words sounded rehearsed, hollow, like she thought she could just wave her hand and everything would go back to normal. But I wasn't buying it anymore. Somewhere inside, I felt a huge weight lift. It wasn't just about the betrayal, it was about finally taking control of my life. I realized I'd spent so many years putting her first, ignoring the red flags, trying to keep the peace. But I couldn't do that anymore. I was done being manipulated. I needed to think about Lily's future, about my own sanity. And honestly, I was angry, not just at Amanda, but at myself for not seeing it sooner. Lily, of course, was confused. She kept asking where her mom was, why she wasn't coming home. I told her that sometimes grown-up stuff happens, and that Amanda needed some time to think. I promised her that everything would be okay, but inside I wasn't so sure. I couldn't promise her what wasn't certain anymore. All I knew was that I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine when it obviously was. I started staying out more, doing things that helped me clear my head, long walks, working extra hours, talking to friends. I needed to keep busy because every time I looked at the photos or read those messages, I felt my stomach churn. I wanted to scream, to cry, to punch a wall, but I kept it all inside. I knew that to get through this, I had to be rational, cold, even. Revenge, I thought, isn't about throwing punches or yelling. It's about making her regret what she's done, about taking back control. That's when I decided to set a trap. I wanted her to see that I wasn't just going to go quietly. I planned to confront her face to face, show her I had all the evidence, and let her see how much she'd destroyed. I knew she thought she was untouchable, bitchy, manipulative, used to getting her way, but I was done playing nice. I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal. I wanted her to see that her lies had consequences. And most of all, I wanted her to understand that her actions had shattered our marriage and that I was finally ready to fight back. I spent a few days preparing for the final confrontation. I knew I had to be calm, collected, but also firm. I wanted her to see that I wasn't some cuckolded fool anymore. I was serious. I arranged to meet her at that same hotel where everything went down, the one where the photos had captured her sneaking in and out like a damn criminal. I figured if she thought I was bluffing, this would be the perfect way to prove her wrong. That evening, I parked a few blocks away and kept an eye on the lobby. I watched her walk in, tense, looking around nervously like she knew she'd been caught, though she was trying to pretend she was. When she finally saw me, her face twisted into that familiar bitchy sneer. She tried to play it cool, but I could see the panic in her eyes. I pulled out the folder I'd compiled, screenshots, photos, messages, and laid it on the table in front of her. "You lied," I said simply, voice steady but full of anger. "All of it. The hotel photos, your messages, everything. I know about Jake, her little protege. I know how long this has been going on, and I'm done pretending I don't see what's been happening." Her reaction, classic Amanda. She immediately switched gears, trying to act innocent. She crossed her arms, rolled her eyes, and said, "You're overreacting. This is all a misunderstanding. You don't know what you're talking about." But her voice cracked, and I could see her trying to hide the guilt. I pressed her further. "Misunderstanding. You've been sleeping with him during Lily's competitions, Amanda. You've been lying, sneaking around. How much more of this do I have to endure? You think you can just lie your way out of it, blame me for being insecure or jealous, but I've got the proof. And I'm not going to be your punching bag anymore." She started to lose her composure. Her bitchy mask cracked and she spat back. "You're just jealous because I'm better looking than you. You're insecure, trying to control everything. I don't owe you a damn thing." Her voice was shrill, but I saw through her act. She was panicking and she knew she'd been caught. I told her that I was done with her lies, that I was filing for divorce, that I'd had enough of her manipulation, her special friend, her sneaky trips. I told her I was going to make sure she paid for what she'd done, not just to me, but to Lily too. I wanted her to feel the full weight of her betrayal, her response. She tried to gaslight me, telling me I was just jealous and insecure, that I was making everything up. She accused me of spying on her because I was obsessed, and that she never wanted to hurt me, that she just needed to find herself. But I wasn't buying any of it. I knew her tricks. I knew her game. I felt a cold calm come over me. I told her that I documented everything, that I had proof she couldn't deny. I warned her that if she didn't leave peacefully, I'd take legal action and make sure she never saw Lily again without supervision. I wanted her to understand this wasn't just about cheating. It was about her destroying our family and thinking she could get away with it. She looked at me with that bitchy smirk again, trying to hold onto her last shred of control. She said she loved Lily, loved me, and that she'd never do anything to hurt us. But I knew better. I saw her for what she was, a manipulative, selfish woman who thought she was above the rules. I realized I had to make a choice then and there. Either fight to save my dignity or fold and let her continue her lies. I told her to pack her shit and leave. If she didn't, I'd call the cops and have her removed. She stormed out, furious and cursing, but I stood my ground. Watching her walk away, I felt an odd sense of relief mixed with emptiness. It was as if I'd finally taken the first step toward reclaiming my life, even if it hurt like hell. That night I sat alone in the house, staring at the empty space where she used to be. I felt numb, exhausted, and yet oddly free. The betrayal hit hard, but I knew this was the beginning of a new chapter. I'd protect Lily, I'd start healing, and I'd rebuild whatever was left of our shattered family. It was time to move on, and I knew I'd never let anyone do this to me again. In the days that followed Amanda's departure, everything felt surreal. The house was eerily quiet. Lily clung to me more than ever, asking when her mom would come back, why she wasn't there. I had no real answers, only the truth I'd uncovered and the crushing weight of betrayal. Part of me wanted to reach out to Amanda, to beg her to come back and explain everything, but I knew better. I'd given her enough chances, enough lies. Now it was about picking up the pieces and moving forward. I spent a lot of time reflecting on what had happened. The whole ordeal opened my eyes to how blind I'd been, how I'd ignored the signs, how I'd stayed loyal to a woman who had no respect for me or our marriage. I realize now that respect is everything, and trust is fragile. Once broken, it's almost impossible to repair, especially when lies are involved. I decided to focus on Lily. She's innocent in all this, and I refuse to let her suffer because of her mother's mistakes. I promised her that we'd be okay, that I'd do everything to protect her and give her the love she deserved. We started going to therapy together just to help her process everything, and honestly, it helped me as well. I knew I had to stay strong, not just for her, but for myself. As for me, I've come to a harsh but necessary realization. I can't go back. I'd spent years trying to fix things that were unfixable, hoping that Amanda would change, that she'd realize how much she was hurting us, but she didn't. She chose her affair over her family. That's something I can't forgive, no matter how much I wanted to. I've learned that sometimes walking away is the only way to save what's left of yourself. I've also become more cautious about who I trust. I used to believe everyone had good intentions, but now I know better. I've learned to listen to my gut, to recognize red flags early, and to stand up for myself when it really counts. That betrayal taught me a lot, not just about her, but about my own strength. I'm not the same man I was a few weeks ago. I've become more guarded, more aware, and more determined to rebuild my life on my own terms. Looking back, I can say I learned some tough lessons. Never ignore the small signs, because usually they lead to something much bigger. Trust is fragile. Once it's shattered, it's damn hard to piece back together. And most importantly, you can't pour from an empty cup. If someone consistently hurts you, no matter how much you love them, sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away and start over. Now I'm focusing on me and Lily. We're healing slowly but surely. I've started dating again cautiously, but I'm not rushing into anything. I want to rebuild my life piece by piece with honesty and integrity. As much as her betrayal cut deep, it also made me realize my worth. I deserve someone who respects me, who loves me without secrets or lies. So this is my story. It's a lesson learned the hard way about trust, betrayal, and the strength it takes to move on. If you're ever in a similar situation, my advice is to face the truth, no matter how painful, and don't be afraid to walk away. Because in the end, your happiness and your sanity are what matter most. And no matter how bad it hurts, time heals and life goes on.